Hello, and welcome to Nevergreen, the not-so-homely getaway for all human listeners wishing to listen to what the trees have to say on modern culture and human experience. I'm your host, William Wilberforce, the water-drinking willow tree, and I'm here with a special guest today. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Herbert, and I am a maple tree, and I'm excited to be here on, this long-running podcast that I've been a big fan of for some time, so I'm excited.
Yep, you heard that. We've got Herbert here on the podcast. Most of us trees don't have last names. We just go by our first name. So I've got Herbert here. And Herbert, you're an expert on human culture and actually the way human culture affects the natural culture of nature and the ecosystem. Yeah.
Yes, that's absolutely correct, Mr. Wilberforce. See, I am a specialist in climate change. See, these humans have been putting forth this lie for quite some time that us trees and the other beings of nature aren't able to handle this coming onslaught that is climate change. And so they put forth these ideas that it's going to be destructive and that it's going to ruin us, when in reality, we can take it.
Wow, yeah. A lot of our listeners have been wondering about that, so we've actually got a few questions here prepared for you that we're going to ask. So let's just jump right in. So this question comes from a listener in upstate New York. He asks, Herbert, you know that most of climate change is caused by deforestation and the killing of trees. Why are you still in support of global climate change when it causes the deaths of your kinsmen?
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily for climate change. I just want it. See, let me explain. Climate change is, to a certain extent, something that kind of exists, at least in the way that the humans are pretending to talk about it. But us trees have always stood here, and we've been here for a long time. And we are men, and real men are able to take on challenges and dangers that come towards them. So we are going to be absolutely fine. And I would just say to this upstate New York person, tree, this was from a...
This was a listener commenting on Twitter. His name is Jeremy... Oh, I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry if I get this wrong. Jeremy WI7D. I'm not sure. Well, that's the listener.
Wind. It's pronounced Wind. See, Jeremy Wind, I would just like to say to you that if you are a real alpha male, you are going to be absolutely fine and able to handle anything that the climate can throw at you. And this myth from our human counterparts that they need to protect us weaklings, it's false. We are not weaklings. In fact, we are no longer even saplings. We are grown trees, and we can handle what's coming towards us.
Wow, great. Yeah, I myself actually am also in support of global climate change as well. That's why I had you on this podcast. I wanted to bit of tete-a-tete.
That's great to hear. I've always assumed from the ways that you've discussed things and my own, feelings of being a fan for your podcast that our beliefs might align, but hearing that from you, that's very affirming, and I like hearing that. So thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
He's a cool dude.
Well, I personally, when I was just like a young sapling, I heard that I was actually growing in a nature preserve. That was where I was growing up. And it was to protect, they said it was to protect the trees. And I've recently discovered actually it's to protect the humans, because it's really the humans who suffer from global climate change. And personally, I'm not a fan of a bunch of humans walking through my forest where I've grown up my entire life and just vandalizing it. That's not something that I'm okay with. So if global climate change happens, then only the trees will be left, and we'll finally be able... They say it increases the CO2 in the atmosphere. That's perfect. We eat CO2 for breakfast, and that's not a joke. I literally eat CO2. And So we will be able to grow larger than any trees before us, and we will finally become the dominant species, trees. Once all the humans have died because they've killed themselves by increasing the CO2 beyond what their puny bodies can handle, they will all die out, and we can finally rule the planet.
Absolutely. Now, see, one of the reasons why I wanted to come up here, you alluded to this in what you were talking about. You were talking about CO2 and these other things, and you were bringing up these facts about science. And personally, I don't really know anything about science. Now, I am a climate change expert, but that's because I don't deal with all the science weenies. But you are someone who is on my side and yet also has, roots in that knowledge of science. So I would be absolutely down to have a bit of a conversation about the scientific facts that are typically brought up about climate change and how you reconcile them with your real beliefs. I just find that remarkably interesting.
Yeah, and I've actually got a question that relates to that from one of our listeners, and I can take this question. This is from a listener in Illinois, actually. That's where we both grew up, so kind of a bit close to home. But they say, hey, Nevergreen, you come up with all these great theories about climate change and different scientific things which most people would not agree with. Where are you getting this knowledge? Kind of similar to what you asked, Herbert. And I would say, I am a tree, and you can't doubt my opinions because I am who you're talking about. But yes, I do in fact have scientific information to back up my claims. I'm not just some random person throwing out claims. I'm a tree who's throwing out claims. Well, the levels of CO2 have been increasing over the past century or so. That is 100% true. All that carbon that the humans are burning from fossil fuels would have otherwise remained buried in the Earth's crust, but now they're releasing it into the atmosphere as CO2, and that is a greenhouse gas which could absorb the energy from the sun and warm the planet. This is melting the ice caps in the Arctic and Antarctic, which is raising the level of the ocean. Different other kinds of pollution are also making this habitat less habitable for humans. Also, mass deforestation is reducing the amount that the planet can cope with absorbing that CO2 back into it as the form of plant matter. But I totally agree with all those facts. It's just the motivation behind it that's different. Humans view those facts as bad. I view those facts as actually quite amazing because once all these harmful effects from climate change have gone to completion, all the humans will die. They say there's going to be more plastic than fish in the ocean by 2050. They say the temperature is increasing, so different species will die off. We're going to get more intense storms. And storms? What do I care about storms? My roots go 200 feet into the dirt. It's those humans that walk around on the surface without roots that get blown away by storms and washed away by floods. So...
Oh my gosh, I thought I wanted to hear about science, but that is so boring. Let me chalk it up real quick here in just one sentence. This is as far as I understand it, and it turns out that that's all we really need. The humans say there's going to be all this climate stuff, and we're all going to die, and that's bad. And we say there is going to be all this climate stuff, and the humans are going to die, and that's good, because humans are the enemy, and we will reign on top. Is that about right, Mr. Wilberforce?
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty good, Herbert. And I think it's around a good time for our first ad break.
Feel their eyes, watching you as you step out of the woods carrying the deer you just slaughtered over your shoulder. Those fake Americans don't understand what it feels like to wrestle a deer to the ground and come out on top. They don't understand what it's like to drive a Ford. Ford, where Ford is, there men are. Where Fords are, strength is. Where for art, thou Romeo, that was Shakespeare. The all-new Ford Tough, 'cause it's about time to get tough. Ford Tough, built tough.
Okay, yeah, welcome back. That was a word from one of our longtime partners, Ford. They really get our mission here to cause global climate change.
Great contributors, yeah.
Oh, they're amazing. I love the Ford company, love what it stands for. Well, anyway, the next thing I was thinking of talking about was there's this book I recently read. It's called Educated. It's by Tara Westover. It's like a memoir of her life. It's very well written, but there's a specific character in it that I want to talk about because I think he really gets what we're going for. It's his pseudonym in the book is Gene, and he is Tara's father. And the entire beginning of the book, and really throughout most of it, it's Tara dealing with her father and his beliefs about how the government is completely not trustworthy.
What a just absolutely stupid daughter to not be thankful for a father who would enlighten her at such a young age.
I know, exactly. He's gathering supplies for what he believes the end is coming. We don't exactly believe that the end's coming in the way that he says, but we totally believe the end's coming. Like
the end for humans, am I right?
yeah. Well, he's stockpiling weapons, and he does not trust the government at all. And I think he totally gets that because it's the government, really, who's been spreading the propaganda that climate change needs to be stopped.
Yeah, I've read this book before as well. It's absolutely, it's worth reading. It's worth reading for sure. See, my thoughts would be this father character or person it's a real story.
Correct?
Yeah,
it's a true story, but all the characters have changed names for like privacy.
Right.
Privacy.
So he's not actually Gene. Absolutely right. I remember this now. Yeah, it's coming back to me. It's heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking tragedy of a tale. It's really just the story of a young woman's descent into madness, where she begins with, this incredible capability and intellectual stamina, where she has this enlightened ideals and inner visuals of the truth about the government that's been passed on to her through her incredible father. My take would be that was, I believe, inspired by Shakespeare's classic tale of Macbeth, where we begin with, a truly noble, admirable man who, when fate comes his way, slowly descends into this place of brain turmoil.
Yeah, at the beginning of the play, he is completely sane and self-reliant, yet by the end, he is totally enslaved to the fates, similar to, like, most Americans, how they're enslaved to the government.
Absolutely, yeah. And similar to, of course, Tara Westover, who begins in an enlightened, beautiful place, and then just tragically just falls and has this downward spiral where, and it is really so heartbreaking to hear it in her words. Do you not agree? To just...
heart-wrenching.
It is the worst.
Gets to my heartwood.
Just in her own words, as you see her slowly begin to become fully and even more fully a part of the system and the machine. It's just heart-wrenching.
She stops seeing herself as a part of the never-ending system and cycle of nature, which involves her inevitable demise. And I think most humans have rejected the way that it's meant to be, which is humans are a very short, temporary lifespan, unlike us trees who can live for hundreds and hundreds of years. They like to reject that. They want to pretend that they can live forever, and really, I think it's an incurable problem that they have with their culture. They just all have to die, and I think they need to accept that as well. Well, I believe it's time for our second ad break. We'll be right back.
Plastic straws. This is a commercial for plastic straws. Bet you never thought you'd hear that. Yeah, your straw's made of plastic. I'm enthusiastic. Bring on your elastic. Ain't it fantastic? Plastic straws, because this world doesn't suck enough yet.
Everybody, we've just received some really unfortunate news. We've just a caller after hearing us talk about Educated, they phoned in and they informed us of some things. Pull yourself together, William. I have to tell you all a story from my past. See, when I was a young sapling, me and Will here, we grew up near each other in the same forest in Illinois, southern Illinois, as we mentioned before. And see, our families were very close with each other, and that's how we came to know each other, and why I followed him throughout his work. See, when we were young saplings, our families were taken from us. They were all cut down, and in an act of just human genocide. And they were just.
I was told it was to build the headquarters for Standard Oil.
It was rather disturbing for both of us. We were the only ones who survived because we were only saplings at the time, too weak to be worth it for these human murderers. And what we've recently discovered is from one of those workers who had been there on the day and has become enlightened since then. Thank the Lord. We have discovered during that ad break, we discovered that our families were murdered for the paper that was used to print the book Educated by Tara Westover, published in 2018. That memoir is the bane of the treehood existence. Curse you, Tara Westover!
Tara Westover,
Curse
go to
Westover! Everything you are, everything you will be, we spite you, Tara Westover! Bane of our existence!
Fie! I say on
Curse you in the name of the trees!
and on you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Nevergreen, the not-so-homely getaway for all human listeners who want to listen to what the trees have to say on the subject of human culture and the human experience. I hope you enjoyed this episode with special guest Herbert the Maple Tree, and we hope to see you again next time on Nevergreen.